Just when you thought celebrity scandals had peaked, Luis Tangle has detonated a revelation that could rattle the Vatican walls. After weeks of cryptic posts and deafening silence, the pop culture firebrand has finally spoken out about his alleged fallout with none other than Pope Francis, and what he's saying isn't just shocking, it's downright damning. Whether it's spiritual betrayal or a power struggle behind closed cathedral doors, Luis isn't holding back, and neither are the consequences. For weeks, the whispers were getting louder. A-listers unfollowed him. Cryptic captions appeared under candlelit selfies. Paparazzi caught him pacing the steps of an unnamed cathedral at 2 a.m., face obscured by a hoodie, lips moving in what looked like prayer or a plea. But no one knew what was coming. Luis Tangle, the music world's most unpredictable flame, had gone dark just when speculation reached a fever pitch. Was he hiding, healing, or plotting his next seismic moment? Turns out it was all three. Because when Luis finally opened his mouth, he didn't just spill the tea, he scorched the altar. Without naming names at first, Luis dropped veiled barbs in interviews, referring to a global figure of supposed humility who had privately betrayed him in the most personal way. Fans thought it was a stretch, a metaphor, maybe a diss track in the making. But then came the name, Pope Francis. And just like that, the room went silent. What could possibly have gone so wrong between the planet's most enigmatic pop provocateur and the head of the Catholic Church? And why now? Luis didn't offer apologies. He didn't flinch. He simply said, "People think they know holiness, but some masks are sewn tighter than others." The moment he said it, social media lost its mind, and the questions began flooding in. Why was Luis at the Vatican last year, really? What happened behind those walls? And why is he choosing to detonate the truth now, of all times? To understand just how wild this moment is, you have to rewind, way back, before Luis Tangle was trending for feuding with a religious icon. Long before he was setting Instagram on fire with poetry that read like confessions, or showing up at film premieres wearing embroidered cassocks for fashion, Luis was just another rising star with a voice too smooth for radio and a past too jagged for tabloids. He had that rare thing. Charisma that looked effortless, danger that felt deliberate. He burst onto the scene like a pop rock comet, dragging a heavy chain of rumors and reinvention behind him. Critics said he was the love child of David Bowie and Bad Bunny, with a dose of Lana Del Rey's melancholy, but with Luis, the mythology always ran deeper than the music. He didn't just release songs, he released statements. His music videos felt like confessions disguised as performance art. One featured him dragging a velvet chair through the Vatican gardens, shot without permission, by the way. Another was filmed in what looked a lot like a monastery. These weren't just aesthetic choices, they were breadcrumbs. Then came the interviews, each one more cryptic than the last. Luis would smile, nod, say something like, "I've been learning about forgiveness from someone with a funny hat," and then pivot to talking about his favorite candle scents. Harmless at first, quirky even. But once the Vatican was mentioned by name, fans started combing through every lyric, every image, every live performance looking for clues. And they found them. There was the lyric in Velvet Chain of Grace. "I sat at the table with saints and snakes, and only one passed me the wine." Or the tweet from last December that simply read, "God watches. Some pretend to." Out of context, poetic. But now, a possible breadcrumb trail of coded warnings. Then came the visit. Quietly and with no public announcement, Luis Tangle was spotted in Vatican City last fall. Not as part of a tour group, not for a concert, but on what sources called a private spiritual retreat. There were no press releases. No photos with officials. Just a grainy pap shot of Luis exiting a black car with what looked like a rosary wrapped around his wrist, and a man in clerical robes behind him. It was around that time that something shifted. Luis's tone darkened. His presence on social media turned erratic. The posts became poetic but accusatory. One week he was sharing vintage liturgical art. The next, he was hinting at being betrayed by someone with a balcony view. He stopped appearing at industry events. His management stopped responding to press inquiries. And just like that, the most flamboyant voice in pop went silent, until now. For months, fans speculated that Luis had entered some kind of religious reawakening. Maybe he was converting. Maybe he was working on a sacred album. But a smaller, louder pocket of the fandom wasn't buying it. They pointed to his increasingly barbed captions, the hollow look in his eyes during live streams, the moment he deleted every post except one. A black square with the words, "Even angels get ghosted." Something had happened. And it wasn't just spiritual. It was personal. So by the time Luis finally broke his silence, the world was already on edge. The breadcrumbs had formed a trail, and fans were breathless to see where it led. What no one expected, though, was that it would lead to him. The Pope. Not a metaphor. Not a lyric. A name. A real-world figure with power, legacy, and robes that don't wrinkle. And now that Luis has said it out loud, there's no putting the lid back on the incense. The calm before the storm is over. The clapback has begun. The moment finally came not with a press conference, not with a viral tweet, but during an appearance on a seemingly harmless podcast, a cozy indie show known more for oat milk debates and astrology chats than explosive revelations. Luis slid into the interview late, wrapped in a dramatic charcoal shawl, dark glasses hiding his eyes, sipping something suspiciously bitter from a ceramic mug. At first, it felt like classic Luis, enigmatic, slightly unbothered, tossing out vague lines about healing in the shadows and learning to be okay with exile. But 27 minutes in, the temperature dropped. When asked what had changed in the past year, what had made him disappear, Luis didn't hesitate. "I met someone," he said, pausing just long enough to make you lean in. "Someone people worship. Someone who didn't practice what he preaches." The host tried to pivot, probably terrified. But Luis leaned forward, voice low. "I thought I found a mentor. A guide. But some shepherds don't lead you to the light. They lead you into silence." Then came the line that would ignite headlines around the world. Let's just say, if you're ever in Vatican City, don't drink the wine unless you poured it yourself. He didn't name Pope Francis directly in that moment, but the implications were unmistakable. Every reference, from the balcony preacher to robes hiding rot, all pointed in one direction. The audience knew. The fans definitely knew. And when pressed gently to clarify who he meant, Luis gave a smile so cold it could snap glass. "You already know who," he said. "He blesses crowds from windows." The podcast episode was barely up for an hour before the clips flooded TikTok, Twitter, and every gossip blog worth their domain renewal. The phrase, "he blesses crowds from windows," trended globally within the afternoon. Stan accounts began posting side-by-sides of Luis's lyrics and the Pope's speeches, decoding alleged parallels, searching for subtext. Theories exploded. Had they met one-on-one? Was this spiritual manipulation? Artistic betrayal? Something deeper? Darker? Luis, for his part, went radio silent again. No clarifications. No walkbacks. Just a single Instagram story posted the next day, a candle burning next to a torn photo of a man's hand in a papal ring. People began speculating everything, from emotional abuse to ideological fallout. Some insiders whispered that Luis had hoped to partner with the Vatican on a charity project and was shut down brutally. Others alleged Luis was granted a private audience with Pope Francis that left him spiritually shaken and furious at the hypocrisy. No one from the Vatican has commented publicly, not even a denial. And here's the kicker. Every time Luis has faced controversy before, he's been loud, combative, dramatic. But now, he's eerily calm, which for someone like him is way more terrifying. The internet did what the internet does best, explode. Within minutes of Luis's cryptic but piercing comments, Twitter, yes, people still call it that, erupted in what can only be described as blasphemy meets Bravo. Memes surfaced within seconds. "He blesses crowds from windows" was etched over screenshots of brooding Netflix priests, HBO bishops, and even a screen cap from the young Pope. But beneath the viral chaos was something deeper, a fracture. Fans were no longer just speculating. They were choosing sides. Some rallied instantly behind Luis, dubbing him Saint Tangle and launching a full-scale digital defense campaign. Hashtags like #LuisKnew, #Papalgate, and #VelvetExile trended by nightfall. Fan edits poured in, recontextualizing past interviews and lyrics with almost obsessive precision. A slowed-down remix of his ballad Confessional Season hit TikTok, cut with footage of burning incense, black-veiled nuns, and Luis crying in a cathedral-themed music video from 2 years ago. The vibe? Cinematic martyrdom. Others, however, weren't having it. Catholic commentators clapped back, accusing Luis of exploiting religion for clout and drama. "This isn't activism, it's sacrilege," one headline read. More conservative media outlets questioned his credibility, his motives, even his mental health. A bishop in Spain tweeted, then deleted, a cryptic verse about false prophets in designer robes, which fans quickly screen-capped and posted side by side with Luis's Met Gala look. Yes, the one with the bejeweled halo. But the silence that rang the loudest came from the Vatican itself. No statement. No denial. No clarification. Just a void. Papal press officers declined interviews, and one was reportedly overheard telling a journalist, "We don't dignify gossip with God in the mix." That only made things worse. Because when institutions stay quiet, the audience assumes guilt, or at least intrigue. Then came the celeb domino effect. First up, Taraya Bloom, Luis's longtime collaborator and rumored former flame, posted a TikTok of herself silently staring into the camera while a Latin hymn played in the background. Caption: "I told him not to go to Rome." No follow-up, no comments, just a haunting little drop of gasoline on an already blazing fire. Next, Dior wiped 3 upcoming campaign shots featuring Luis from their official site. No reason given. Within hours, Luis posted a cryptic story, an extreme close-up of the inside tag of a Dior jacket with a caption cut from the same cloth until they burn it. Message received. Then, in a move no one saw coming, actual celebrity priest Father Matteo D'Alba, yes, the one with 2.1 million followers and a Netflix devotional series, jumped into the conversation with a surprisingly sharp message. No man, no matter how poetic, gets to play God's victim for applause. The comments section turned into a war zone. "Did you meet the Pope, Matteo?" one user asked. He didn't reply. Luis, for his part, said nothing. Again, which only made the obsession worse. The less he spoke, the more people projected. Journalists started digging. Reddit threads became conspiracy manifestos. Old papal speeches were combed for shade. One grainy photo of Luis supposedly dining alone in a Vatican guest house reemerged, this time with users zooming in on the shadows, claiming you could clearly see another figure watching from the hallway. Meanwhile, Luis's management issued a rare and vague statement. Luis speaks from his lived experience. His art has always reflected truth as he knows it. We will not be elaborating at this time. Translation: chaos is good for business. And it was. His streams skyrocketed. Vintage merch sold out. Velvet Chain of Grace charted again, 2 years after release. The world wasn't just watching, it was dissecting, dramatizing, theologizing. Luis Tangle wasn't just a pop star anymore. He was a symbol. Of what? Depends who you ask. Some say spiritual truth-teller. Others say delusional narcissist. But no one could look away. And as the dust barely began to settle, another tremor hit. Luis wiped his entire Instagram. Again. Gone. Every post, every story, every trace of the candle, the papal ring, the balcony metaphor, replaced with a single, black and white photo of a stained glass window depicting Saint Sebastian, tied up, pierced with arrows, yet somehow still standing. No caption. Just one line in the bio. Forgive them. I never said I would. The internet's attention span is notoriously short, but not this time. With the church bells still echoing from Luis's silent war cry and the global spotlight flickering between scandal and spectacle, one question remains etched across every comment thread and podcast table. What happens now? Luis has vanished again. Not in the usual PR spin kind of way, not in the off to Malibu for a wellness reset kind of way. No pap shots. No sightings. No tagged locations. Just gone. And that silence? It's louder than ever. Some fans believe he's gone full The Alchemist, off in the desert seeking spiritual clarity. Others claim he's holed up in a monastery in Provence, working on a confessional concept album that's gonna make Lemonade look like a lullaby. But insiders say differently. One source, anonymous but verified, claims Luis is already in talks with a controversial streaming platform to release a docuseries. Not just about the Vatican episode, but the entire unraveling. Think behind-the-scenes footage, voice memos, blurry FaceTime calls, and receipts. Literal receipts. Apparently, Luis has kept everything. Photos, audio, maybe even a recorded conversation from inside Vatican walls. The working title? The Velvet Exile. 6 parts, 1 hour each, all narrated by Luis himself. And if you think that's wild, there's more. At least 2 major pop stars, one of whom recently shared a stage with Luis, have reportedly scrapped their collaborations with him. Another, a Grammy winner with her own complicated church history, is doubling down instead. Luis is telling truths people are afraid to hear, she said in a leaked voice memo. It's not about faith, it's about power. Her team declined to comment, but the audio has been reposted more times than we can count. And the fact that she's currently booked for the Vatican Christmas concert has not gone unnoticed. As for the Vatican itself, still no official response. But the choreography has begun. A Vatican-connected PR firm, usually silent unless there's a scandal involving saints or statues, has been seen ramping up media outreach in Europe. One expert says this is a classic containment move. Don't name Luis, don't dignify him, but flood the conversation with more appropriate narratives. In other words, diversion. But here's the twist. The damage may already be done. Luis has broken the sacred celebrity covenant. Don't come for the church, and definitely don't come for that church, and he's still standing. Which means other artists, critics, and public figures might feel emboldened. The whispers are already starting, that Luis isn't the only one with stories, that more meetings took place than anyone knew, and that the walls of the Vatican aren't as soundproof as they hoped. There are also rumors of a surprise performance. Word is, Luis is planning something massive and symbolic, an unannounced pop-up in Florence, possibly during the Feast of Corpus Christi. The location? A deconsecrated cathedral turned gallery space. No stage, no backup dancers. Just Luis, barefoot, under stained glass, singing a new song reportedly titled, Holy Ghosted. Will he address the Pope directly? Will he clarify his accusations, or let the ambiguity keep burning like incense in a locked room? No one knows. But here's what's certain. Luis Tangle is no longer just an artist. He's a disruptor. A figure whose mythos has bled into the sacred. And whether you see him as a prophet, a provocateur, or a publicity genius, one thing is clear. He's not done. Not even close. Because the moment you think Luis Tangle has finished speaking is the moment he's already planning his next sermon.